Bids for Trippier, bids for Wilson. Offers being accepted from Almiron. There's a flash sale and Newcastle fans are starting to freak out a little bit mid-season. But is that what Newcastle United have always wanted? Welcome back to Black and White Banter, you lovely jubbly Newcastle fans. I hope you're all well. There's been no football to get our moods either up or, more recently, unfortunately, for Eddie Howe's mags down, because we have started to learn what the word loss looks like. It was just 4 letters at one point, LOSS. Didn't really know what it was. We've had to familiarise ourselves with it a bit more. But yeah, Fulham in the Cup at the weekend. It feels like the football's been away for a month, but it's been a much needed break. It's nice. It's nice, you know. Yes, the weekend was tough, having to go to Primark and organise wardrobes and put furniture together. I've got a new computer desk in the corner of my living room now, though. So, you know, it wasn't all lost, but, you know, I'm ready for the football to be back. But before we get into the topic of today's video, Newcastle fans, do us a little favour. Drop us a little, oh, this is my new spinny chair. A little likey. Lou goes a very long way. It does. It might not sound like it does, but it does. Because there's such a thing called an algorithm, and that algorithm helps this video go to a few more people if it's had a few more of them. So do that for us. Go on. Be a lovely person. And if you like my opinion by the end of this video, whack that subscribe. So, Newcastle United's transfer window has probably not been the most energetic, for want of a better word. But in the past 4 or 5 days, it's certainly cranked up a notch, as if someone's literally just turned the volume up. But it's on the outgoing side and not the ingoing. And you might even argue it's looked like a bit of a flash sale. Got a case of the January blues? Struggling to bring in any players in the January transfer window? Well, look no further than the Newcastle United clearance sale, where everything must go. Yeah. Like literally watching the TV shopping channels. Do people still watch the TV shopping channels? I'm not sure. I'm going to question you if you do. You know, you've got the internet. Why would you be looking on your TV, ringing phone numbers to order a new mop that can also be a Hoover converted? Anyway, yeah, that's what it's felt like. That's literally what it's felt like. Like the for sale sign has been put on some Newcastle players. And what I will go on record and say is, I'm recording this. Apparently the bid for Trippier has been rejected twice now. He's not for sale. Callum Wilson, that was a loan offer from Atletico Madrid as far as I understand. That was rejected. And then Almiron, we're not sure yet. The Almiron one is a little bit fresher. Apparently there's an agreement between the two clubs. We'll see how that one pans out as I make this video. But it's fair to say there is interest in some Newcastle footballers. And as I said at the start of this video, there is a bit of a meltdown, but is it what Newcastle United have always wanted? What do I mean by that? You might be thinking. That might be whilst you're still watching this video. Certainly not for my boyish good looks or my lovely voice. Well, if we cast our minds back to a certain little interview that Mr. Darren Eales did at the start of the year, just as the accounts numbers were announced and we were talking about revenue and sponsorship and all this good stuff. He didn't have to, but what he made a point of saying was that Newcastle might have to sell some of their players, didn't specify who, if they want to lie within financial fair play restrictions and do it fairly to continue signing players and building the team. Now, what that seems to have done, reading between the lines, and of course this is my opinion, as every single one of my videos is it seems to have allowed a bit of a frantic couple of days of clubs suddenly making bids for what you could definitely argue are some of our better players. Kieran Trippier is pretty much our captain when he's on the pitch and Lascelles is not. He's been absolutely instrumental at both ends of the pitch for us. He's a fantastic footballer. Callum Wilson is up there in our goal-scoring Premier League records. He's a starter when he's available, fighting with that spot for Isak, and he certainly knows where the goal is. Almiron has pretty much played every single minute of every match this season, contributing along the way, and I'll keep my opinions on Almiron down as much as possible. So, was Darren Eales' comments that he made part of a strategic plan to start putting the fishing rod out to get those bids in.
There's always going to be that time when we might say that at this stage, this player's at the right value for us to move on, because it actually creates more headroom for us to reinvest in the squad.
I think it was. And do you know why I think it was? Because I trust this ownership with my life. I do. From a strategic point of view, yes. Some factors, as I keep talking about in other videos, how the club might change from a hospitality experience point of view with away games and home games. I'll keep my cards closer to my chest on that one. But from a football club being run and being developed into a big hitter in the Premier League and in Europe, I back the owners. And what I mean by that is not Mehrdad, not Amanda, by the people they have employed to do all of the good stuff on a daily basis. Your Darren Eales, who turned Atlanta from a semi-professional American pub team into a huge stadium in America and a very successful MLS side. Dan Ashworth, whose reputation speaks for itself with Brighton in England. All of these people have been brought in to create a lovely little team, and Peter Silverstone for the commercial stuff on top of that as well, that can send Newcastle in the right direction. And I don't care what anyone watching this video says. We do not, under any circumstances now, make any knee-jerk reactions with no plan on the aftermath of that decision or reaction. And what I mean by that is Kieran Trippier, if Bayern Munich keep up on their bids to 15, 20 million and we do decide to sell him in this window, that is not done without a plan for that money with financial fair play in mind to be used elsewhere. Maybe with Livramento as an example to slot straight in a player we already signed with Kieran Trippier's age in mind. Callum Wilson is not sold mid-season unless we are sure by numbers, by age, by injury record that this is a player we can afford to get rid of, which in my opinion, because as I make this video, Callum Wilson is injured as he is for lots and lots of football, it doesn't affect us if we sell him. Callum Wilson's not available now. He hasn't been available for the last 3 weeks and we've got on okay. He has a record of probably playing 3, missing 3. That decision is not made unless all the powers of be at the table over a coffee sit down and go, do you know what? We are not going to get another opportunity to get money for this guy. Again, he's been a great servant for us. He's one of Eddie Howe's top dogs. But he doesn't play that much football because he's got a terrible injury record, which could potentially, from our scientists behind the scenes, what they're telling us, get worse as he gets older. Miguel Almiron, some people's darling of Newcastle United. Not mine, never mind. Good spells, graft, I love him for. Of course, we've all got a tiny little soft spot for a smiley face on the football pitch, but his record of assists and goals, you could argue, he's played a lot of football for us now, apart from that massively golden spell that he had at the start of last season when he was banging them in for fun. Not a very prolific goal scorer, neither in a black and white shirt. Are they looking at that? If you are talking about 20 and 30 million pound to Saudi Arabia, that could allow us to spend 120 million, in another window, which is mental if it's paid in one payment for him. Is that another decision where Eddie Howe is looking at output? Yes, of course, Almiron's work rate suits Eddie Howe's style of football. A high-pressing, energetic, from the front, intense style. That's why I think Eddie Howe and Almiron kind of clicked as manager and player. But does Eddie Howe accept that he can get a better player who actually has a right foot, who actually registers more than 6 assists in 4 seasons of Premier League football, but also can work hard just the same as Miggy? Yes, I do. And I genuinely believe that every single decision has been calculated. And I'm going to send you back again further than when Darren Eales made that statement at the start of the year. Can anyone remember this time last year when we sold John Joe Shelvey? I can. I wasn't too happy about it. And Chris Wood. There was a lot of talk and friction about the sale of John Joe Shelvey. And in the aftermath, I said it that we maybe shouldn't have got rid of him unless we had a replacement, because we were short in midfield and it was worrying. Where we were from a team point of view and a lack of numbers in central areas was worrying, and we didn't replace him. How many Newcastle fans watching this video can now look back on those 2 decisions where we got, how much did we get for Wood? It was mad, mental money. Did we pay like 20 million for him? and obviously Shelvey's wages got off the books. How many of us have looked back since and said, they were wrong? I was right to be annoyed when we got rid of Shelvey. They were wrong to get rid of him. We've really missed him. None of us have done that, because we went into the following window in the summer and we signed Tonali, who obviously unfortunately isn't playing for us for other circumstances. We brought in Barnes. We brought in Livramento. All of these players, and we ended up qualifying for the Champions League without John Joe Shelvey and getting to a cup final. All of this stuff happened. And at the time, we were all in uproar, as some Newcastle fans are right now over the thought of selling some of these players. John Joe Shelvey was sold not for a random decision, because it was a player who was aging, it was a player that got off the books, and it was a player that we thought that would allow us to spend elsewhere, that someone who wouldn't be getting that much game time moving forward for Eddie Howe. Same with Chris Wood. Alexander Isak and Callum Wilson were always ahead of him in the pecking order, and how can you turn down that money for Chris Wood? And of course, someone's going to jump in the comments and go, well, he did score a hat-trick against us. Yes, I know that, and he'll never probably score another hat-trick like that again in his life, because that's just what happens to Newcastle. But the point I'm trying to make is, these sort of decisions have been made, maybe not on the same scale, and we have not looked back once. I trust my ownership, and I hope you do too. Now, on to the players themselves. And this is all speculation, and I'm not going to spend too long in this video talking about ifs, buts and maybes. I did the Kieran Trippier Bayern Munich link video because that looked pretty concrete. Didn't have any satisfaction in posting it because I just don't like talking about what could or couldn't happen. But with these players, Kieran Trippier, yes, really sad to see him go if he does go. If Bayern keep up on that money, how could Newcastle turn down potentially £20 million for a 33-year-old who, with no disrespect to Kieran at all, because he's a fantastic footballer, the position he plays, he's going to be on a decline. His performances in the next 2 years from the age of 33, he's got to get forward, back. They are going to decline. And there is not going to be many opportunities to cash in £20 million, which again, with FFP as we understand it, would allow us to spend 80 in a future window. And we've got Livramento, literally replacement, who looks absolutely class. And I'm worried to sell him in January, as I said on the last video, because we have a pattern of player that Livramento will not pick up straight away. But my God, we haven't got a bad old replacement, have we? He could be our next right back for 12 years for 35 million. That could be a snip Livramento in 3 or 4 years. I've got no doubt it will be. Then on to Callum Wilson. Well, I've already made my thoughts on Callum Wilson aware. We all love him. He's song. He knows where the goal is. He will always be, in my head, in the highest regard. Since Shearer, we've pretty much had him and Demba Ba. I'm not counting Cisse because he didn't know what offside was. Those are the best we've had since Shearer. Callum Wilson, absolutely class. Poacher like you wouldn't know it. Little bit of pace about him that's starting to drop off a little bit now. But unfortunately, he's not on the field enough. He isn't. Let's not beat around the bush here. Isak, I wouldn't be surprised between now and the end of the season if we kept Callum Wilson. If Callum Wilson makes another 8 starts for us between now and the end of the season, I'd be shocked. I'd genuinely be shocked. He'll come back for the Aston Villa game next week, and then 2 matches in, he'll pick up another injury. That's just the pattern of play we know with him, and he hasn't played enough football for us in his career here. If he had, his goal-scoring record would be through the roof, and it's sad, but it's a fact. On to Almiron. Output's not quite there. He's younger than them too, so if there's a £20-30 million fee being talked about from the Saudis, I'll pay for his taxi. And that sounds so disrespectful, because he's been part of a system and he's really contributed, even more so during this injury spell when he's had to play game after game after game, and he's contributed some big goals. His screamers at Fulham, his goal against PSG, I'm not discrediting that at all, but for me, we can get where we are now with the money I'd like to hope we have in windows, a better quality right winger. And Almiron, do I think he'd be a good squad player? Yes, but do we have many players that we want to sell for £20-30 million with teams that might pay it? No. So Almiron has to be one of them ones that gets put in a taxi. And what we are not used to as fans, which is why there's so much sentimental value attached to these players, is this sort of revolving door that has to happen for us now as a football club. All we've ever known is mediocrity under Mike Ashley, where when we've had a good player, very rarely, Johan Cabaye comes to mind, Demba Ba comes to mind, we've had to just sell them when a bid comes in because ambition's laid elsewhere, and that's just the way it's gone, and you almost don't want to get attached. Now we are in a position where we have very good players like Trippier, who we are looking to move on to get even better players because their shelf life is over. And it happens in all the big clubs, the Man Cities, the Chelseas, the Tottenhams, the Man Uniteds. Players get a shelf life, they move on, they clear the books. And because of financial fair play and the wheel that is financial fair play, we need to do our best to stay within that but also compete. And yes, if anything highlighted how much Newcastle fans have sentiment to their players, me included, it's all of the love for Javier Manquillo we've just sold. Yes, great servant, didn't complain when he wasn't in the team, reliable when he came in, lovely little goal at Man United. But let's face it, Newcastle fans, Javier Manquillo was never that much of a good footballer. He didn't bloody... I've seen tributes pouring out on Facebook, Twitter. What was your best Manquillo memory? Get away, man. Great player, no disrespect to him at all. Really, he looks as soft as, looks like he barely understands where he is half the time when you see his body language when he's out on the training ground. And he did a job for us, but my God, some of the tributes I've seen just show how attached and how little we've had to shout about in terms of quality of player. Now everything is strategic. There's a spreadsheet behind the scenes between Mr. Eels and Dan Ashworth. I've got no doubts about it. Once a player gets to a certain shelf life, we then look at what cost we can get them for. We then look at what point we can't sell a player anymore. And I think Kieran Trippier and Callum Wilson fall in that. And I think Almiron for a high fee also falls in that. We follow in a process. I trust my owners and I genuinely believe that what is happening now with people making bids was exactly what Darren Eales wanted when he put out that statement. Newcastle fans, let me know your thoughts on this. This is just my opinion. Do you think this is all strategic? Do you think it's coincidence that all these bids have come in? And do you think Newcastle United will be looking to sell in this window, or do you think it's a summer job? I'm curious to get your thoughts. If you found this video interesting, do me a favour, whack that little like and whack that subscribe. Get me across all other sources where I basically take the mick 24/7. And if you want any black and white banter merchandise, I also have that. I don't advertise it too much, but if you want to rep my channel because you're a fan, that would mean the world to me as well. Thank you very much for watching, and let's watch this space for the rest of January. But I'll tell you what I'll be doing when I watch it. I'll be have full faith in anything that happens with this current model, and I hope you do too. How are the lads?